Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. So, okay. I want to bring this information to y'all, and I probably won't be able to bring it to you in one take. I'll have to probably segment this out a little bit, and bear with me. This could go off at any time, and if it does, I'll come back to let you know what happened, and I will try to edit it the best that I can. So bear with me. Okay, I mentioned this in the video I made last night that I put up about this SPARS pandemic 2025-2028 scenario. And as you can see right here, it was published in October of 2017. And the things they talk about in here is word for word exactly what is happening right now. And let me take that word for word back, because it's the only thing that's different about this scenario that the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security published is the titles for the vacc and the Cobra Vampire 19er. All they did was change some titles, but you'll see that this is exactly what's happening right now, and this should leave no doubt in your mind that this is all just one big stage. You know, we've all heard the world's a stage, right? Well, that's not a lie, because it is. Okay, the SPARS pandemic 2025-2028, a futuristic scenario for public health risk communicators. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. And basically what this is meant to do was be a paper to guide these people that are pulling this on us, and to facilitate these people on issues that might arise, problems, etc., etc. So, just to be quick, I'll read this. It says about the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. The Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security works to protect people from epidemics and disasters and build resilient communities through innovative scholarships, engagement, and research that strengthens the organizations, systems, policies, and programs essential to preventing and responding to public health crises. The center is part of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and is located in Baltimore, Maryland. So I won't read the contents for you. I do want to point this disclaimer out. It says this is a hypothetical scenario, just in case you try to link this to what's going on. They want to remind you that this is only hypothetical, designed to illustrate the public health risk communication challenges that could potentially emerge during a naturally occurring infectious disease outbreak requiring development and distribution of novel and or investigational drugs, vaccines, therapeutics, or other medical countermeasures. The infectious pathogen, medical countermeasures, characters, new media, excerpts, social media posts, and government agency responses described herein are entirely fictional. Don't you forget it. Now, the whole reason I'm doing this and bringing this to you, because this is vital information that needs to be passed along and shared with y'all. If you do come across this and you see the things I'm pointing out in this paper, please do share this and get this to as many people as you can if you do care about these people. I know I do. I care about y'all, and that's why I'm here doing this. Okay, so possible future in 2025, the echo chamber. Unbridled global access to information coupled with social fragmentation and self-affirming worldviews. And you'll notice throughout this paper these key words that they like to use. Basically painting people like myself and like you out to be problems and hurdles they must overcome in order to roll this out and for it to be as effective as they're intending it to be. Okay, scenario purpose. The following narrative comprises a futuristic scenario that illustrates communications dilemmas concerning medical countermeasures, MCMs, that could plausibly emerge in the not so distant future. Its purpose is to prompt users, both individually and in discussion with others, to imagine the dynamic and oftentimes conflicted circumstances to which communicators around emergency MCM development, distribution, and uptake takes place. While engaged with a rigorous simulated health emergency, scenario readers have the opportunity to mentally rehearse, quote unquote, responses while also weighing the implications of their actions. At the same time, readers have a chance to consider what potential measures implemented in today's environment might avert comparable communications dilemmas or classes of dilemmas in the future. Generation purpose. This prospective scenario was developed through a combination of inductive and deductive approaches, delineated, I can't hardly see that, I think I need glasses, by Ogilvy and Schwartz. The time frame for the scenario, the year 2025-2028, was selected first, and then major socio-economic, demographics, technological, and environmental trends likely to have emerged by that period were identified specifically. Two dominant trends likely to influence regulatory and public responses to future public health emergencies were selected. 1. Varying degrees of access and information technology. And 2. Varying levels of fragmentation among populations along social, political, religious, ideological, and cultural lines. A scenario matrix was then constructed, illustrating 4 possible worlds shaped by these trends, with consideration given to both constant and unpredictable driving forces. So you see how they say this is a scenario matrix that has been constructed illustrating 4 possible worlds shaped by these trends. This, if you haven't noticed, this current situation that we find ourselves in is shaping and molding this world into a new one that they have been foaming at the mouth to bring about. So I'm not going to read the preface. We're just going to jump straight into it and get down here to, we're going to be on page 3, the opening of this, and you can see it's titled Response. And mind you, don't forget that this was published in 2017, and I'm sure that they worked on this for years to construct this paper. So, response. The SPARS outbreak begins. Chapter 1, the St. Paul Chronicle. And don't you think this is a bit of a coincidence that this has the name St. Paul, because it's they're claiming in this fictional paper that this fictional pandemic originated in St. Paul, Minnesota, right next to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where all this controversy is stemming from. Okay, St. Paul Chronicle. Third death in a week due to unknown illness in Twin Cities. In mid-October 2025, 3 deaths were reported among members of the First Baptist Church of St. Paul, Minnesota. And notice how they chose to use a church to be the epicenter for this fictional pandemic. 2 of the church members had recently returned from a missionary trip to the Philippines, where they provided relief to victims of regional floods. The third was the mother of a church member who had also traveled to the Philippines with the church group, but who had been only mildly sick himself. Based on the patient's reported symptoms, healthcare providers initially guessed that they had died from seasonal influenza, which health officials predicted would be a particularly virulent and widespread that fall. However, laboratory tests were negative for influenza. Unable to identify the causative agent, officials at the Minnesota Department of Health's Public Health Laboratory sent the patient's clinical specimens to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, where scientists confirmed that the patients did not have influenza. One CDC scientist recalled reading a recent ProMed dispatch describing the emergence of a novel coronavirus in Southeast Asia. And if you remember when this first started, they liked to use the word novel when they were describing the COVID-19 or the coronavirus. Once you get into this paper, like I said, there will be no doubt as to what's going on here. And if you still have a doubt after you read this, if you haven't learned of Operation Lockstep, Operation 201 scenario, and now this, I think Trump's scenario exercise was called, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was called Operation Crimson Tide, maybe. I'm not for sure, but it was Crimson something. But it was all the same narrative, giving these people an outline, a guide to go on when rolling this out, like a script, because that's what it is. In fact, infected with a novel coronavirus, which was dubbed the St. Paul Acute Respiratory Syndrome, coronavirus, SPARS, COV, or SPARS, after the city where the first cluster of cases had been identified. And now they go over, like if you notice on the left, these little tweets and stuff they put out here. This is all to give these people some tips and instructions on how to counteract people like myself and like you on social media, um, sharing truth or tweeting or posting out negative posts that sheds light on the truth of this whole matter, and calling out the fiction that is the Cobra Vampire one-niner. It lays the groundwork so these people will be better equipped on dealing with people like you and I. So that's what this is all about. And all they do is change the names, the titles, the places, and the people, but the scenario, the facts remain that this is exactly the plan they've had in mind this whole time, and it's going according to plan. They are not missing a step. You know, these people are sick and twisted, and they have one agenda, one universal agenda and goal, and that is to get that Maxine Waters into your arms. If you haven't heard, their objective is to get it in arms. And it's so easy to see when you do watch the news, which I don't watch it that much, but the news I do watch, the clips I see, it's so obvious that they're foaming at the mouth to get this in us, to bring about this clay and iron mixture. Okay, the CDC monitored the situation closely, working with partners in Southeast Asia to quickly develop a case definition for SPARS. And notice Southeast Asia, exactly where they say this came from. Within 4 weeks of CDC publishing a working case definition on its website, nearly 200 suspected cases of SPARS were reported across Minnesota and 6 other states. Given that flu season was just getting underway and that a rapid diagnostic test for SPARS-CoV infection was not yet available, just like they said when this Cobra Vampire one-niner was first detected, and in the early stages, they had the PRC test, and they were stressing that they didn't have the adequate test supplies to use, and that's exactly what they're saying here. Let's look at these tweets by the CDC. Holiday travel plans, ? Stop SPARS by washing your hands and avoiding public places if you feel sick. If you feel ill, seek medical attention. Use the vampire cough. I coined that term too, the Cobra Vampire one-niner, so you're welcome. And avoid others to prevent the spread of SPARS. Stop SPARS Saturday. Yay. Practice good hygiene during your Thanksgiving travels and bring home leftovers, not SPARS. Happy Thanksgiving. Be safe on Black Friday. Oh yeah, make sure you be safe on Black Friday, but don't forget to go spend all your money the very next day in Walmart, elbowing one another for the latest game console or flat screen TV. If you brave the crowds, wash your hands often. If you feel sick, shop on Cyber Monday instead. As transmission of SPARS was determined to occur via droplet spread. This was made and published in 2017. Okay. The CDC initially recommended that everyone diligently maintain hand hygiene and frequently disinfect potentially contaminated surfaces. CDC officials further urged anyone with severe flu-like symptoms to seek immediate medical attention. Public health officials were concerned that the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday and Black Friday shopping activities would facilitate the spread of SPARS, but they remained confident that the awareness and prevention measures disseminated annually for seasonal influenza, combined with isolation procedures for suspected cases, just like the CARES Act, the contact tracing, would be effective at countering the spread of SPARS. These messages were spread via a variety of traditional and social media sources, including Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and ZapQ. I'm not sure about ZapQ, if that's a fictional social media platform or not, or it's real. I don't know. I don't get into all the tweets and the Twitters and stuff, so I'm old school, I guess you could say. So uh, you'll notice, as we go along here, that they are going to paint us out, like I said before, to be the biggest problem in this whole scenario. People that are willing to speak truth, that refuse to go along with this buffalo bullcrap that they're pushing on to us and the rest of the world. So you're going to see us outlined and highlighted uh, in an indirected, in a roundabout way, so that they'll better know, they'll know how to deal with us better, I should say. Concern among many Americans about the severity of SPARS at this point in the outbreak was moderately high. The public's concern was compounded by the apparent virulence of the pathogen. At the outset of the SPARS outbreak, physicians' understanding of the disease stemmed primarily from extremely severe cases resulting in pneumonia or hypoxia that required hospitalizations and extensive medical treatment. Mild cases of the disease, which produce symptoms including cough, fever, headaches, and malaise, were often perceived as the flu by the people who had them, and consequently often were untreated and undiagnosed by medical personnel. Now, you notice how they say here that they put emphasis on hand sanitizing, and they're going to put emphasis on face coverings. Now, there's been plenty of studies and reports that overuse of hand sanitizer can cause cancer and liver problems. This has been reported, and it is a fact. And the overuse of face coverings is causing a huge amount of pneumonia cases worldwide. And is that hard to believe when you're walking around with a face covering, a muzzle that is restricting your airflow and is causing you to breathe back in the same CO2 and crap that you're exhaling that is supposed to go out into the air, but now you are breathing that back into your lungs? Yeah, it's no coincidence. All of these things that they are pushing on us it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. They're slowly chopping at the bottom of the tree with the end goal of taking it down. And that tree is you and I, ladies and gentlemen. So, concern among many Americans about the severe... Okay, I already read that part. Sorry about that. Mild cases of the disease, which produce symptoms including cough, fever, headaches, and malaise, I don't know what that word is, were often perceived as the flu by the people who, I'm sorry, I already read that part. Excuse me. The print is super small here, so I'm having a bit of trouble seeing it and reading it, but we'll get through this for sure, because there's nothing more important than to, you know, raise awareness about what's going on here, to shed light on these things, and bring forth the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So if you are still someone that has that doubt that this might not be what me and my brothers and sisters have been telling you it is, the whole point of this is to wake you up, get you to share this, like just like they are, Joe Biden and these people are desperately calling on you to encourage your family and your loved ones to roll up their sleeve and take this concoction. Well, I am desperately, and I am calling for you to encourage your family, your friends, and your loved ones to at least do their own research, do their own due diligence, to look into this before you roll up your sleeve blindly and allow these people who does not deserve our trust stick this concoction that they don't even, the facilitators of this don't even know the true ingredients of this concoction. I'm asking you to do your due diligence before you allow them to stick this in you. Once it's in you, there's no turning back. You cannot unvaccinate. Once you're vaccinated, it's in you. You cannot extract it from your bloodstream and your cells. It's in there, and it's not coming out. And the law, and you'll see in this paper, they predicted long-term side effects that will arise years down the road from this first dose. And just one dose isn't enough. They're going to keep coming with more and more, to where it'll be an annual ordeal that you'll have to take this. They'll want you to take this annually. Okay, as a result, early case fatality estimates were inflated. Right there. You see that? And this is something that the MSM, the mainstream media, has had to admit. And we all know that the early cases, the early fatality estimates were inflated because they were labeling anyone that had passed, regardless of how they had passed, whether they had been run over by a bus or murdered or fell off of a bridge. If they had, if they produced a positive test for Cobra Vampire One-Nighter, that's what they were labeled. The cause of death was reported that it was Cobra Vampire One-Nighter, regardless of how they died. Excuse me. So they admit that those estimates were inflated. By late November, the CDC reported an initial estimated SPARS case fatality rate of 4.7%. By contrast, the WHO reported that the overall case fatality rate for SARS was actually 14 to 15%, and over 50% for people over the age of 64. Later in the SPARS outbreak, data that included more accurate estimates of mild SPARS cases indicated a case fatality rate of only 0.6%. Doesn't that sound oddly familiar, that the cases were there was a bigger number of fatalities in the people that were 64 and older, and that the more accurate fatality rate was actually around 0.6%, which is actually around only like 0.1, 0.2%, studies have shown. Two additional features of the SPARS virus that were not appreciated at the beginning of the pandemic, but that impacted how the outbreak played out. There it is again. They rub this in our faces, people. It's not enough that they're doing this to us. They have to rub it in our faces and crack jokes to one another on just how evil they are and how much uh, of an idiot they think you are, I should say. And they're they're counting on the majority of these sheeple to be fast asleep so they can pull this fast one on us and pull the wool over our eyes. Okay, where was I? First, the virus had an extended incubation period, 7 to 10 days, compared to its latest period, 4 to 5 days. These infected persons could spread the virus for up to nearly a week before showing symptoms asymptomatic of the disease themselves. As a result, isolating sick SPARS patients proved to be less effective than isolating patients infected by other, better characterized respiratory diseases. Second, morbidity and mortality from SPARS were both significantly higher in children than adults. And that's what they told us in the beginning. That's why all these schools issues arose in the beginning. Now they're telling us the complete opposite, that children have the least to worry about. Pregnant women and those with chronic respiratory conditions like asthma and emphysema were also at a higher risk for both disease complications and death. Ooh. Okay. Now, every chapter, I think it is, they put these little boxes up that says communication dilemma. And this is where we come in. This is where we're outlined and highlighted as being the biggest factor in this whole scenario, the biggest dilemma. Impending public trust and a sense of self-efficacy when a crisis is still evolving and health information is incomplete. When health information is incomplete and when something like this just comes out into the public, we're supposed to trust these people who, like I've said, do not deserve our trust over the Most High and the way He has built us with an immune system to handle so much more than they tell us it is, because they want you to believe that you're not unique, that you're not created and designed by the Most High to overcome things like the cold and the flu, and they recommend that you buy into their pharmakia so that you can be tagged and turned into one of their guinea pigs so they can bring you to a place where you're completely reliant on them and their sorcery to get through life, instead of the immune system and our body's ability to fight off disease that the Most High gave us, that was geniusly designed. Food for thought. How can health authorities best meet public demands for critical information such as what is the health threat and what do I know about it, when the crisis is still unfolding and not all the facts are known? What benefits does monitoring trends in social media postings confer on efforts to meet people's information needs during an evolving health crisis? What medical and moral boosting purposes does sharing information about self-protective actions, e.g. infection control measures, serve for the public during an uncertain and fear-instilling situation? Fear-instilling, I wonder how that came to be. I wonder how these people worldwide were brought to panic and fear. I wonder how that happened. Could it be the one-eyed beast that sits in front of you that tells you everything you ought to know, that puts the fear that wouldn't have otherwise even existed in you? Yeah. We are like the movie They Live said. We are being brought to a fear-induced state of existence, like we're being lulled to sleep, but we're being pumped with this fear that there's this awful boogeyman outside that is going to take your life, that is nothing more than a fictional, made-up lie. Nothing more. And it's disgusting, and disgusting enough for me to do what I can to bring facts out and to raise awareness, because if we just sit back and we let these things happen to us without saying anything, without having enough courage and bravery to stand up to these things, people, do you realize that let's just say we know for a fact that the HOLOCOST, I think that's how you spell that, that happened back with the was it World War II, when millions of people lost their lives, when that was supposedly, whether that happened or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. I know what the history books tell us, but I also know that the victors write the history books as well. But let's just say we know for a fact that did happen. If you lived there in that area when that was happening, and you knew this was happening, and yet you did nothing to stop it, you did nothing to stand up against tyranny, and you let that happen, those folks that supposedly done that, if they're real and they did exist, I'm sure they were tormented the rest of their life knowing that they just sat back and watched that happen. I'm not going to. I have a conscience. I have a day with judgment, a date, and I'm going to do what I can. And there is no other explanation for me doing this. Excuse me. So, a possible cure, chapter 2. And this is, I guess this is just a little public service announcement, maybe. Summary: the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and state health departments are investigating the emergence of the St. Paul acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus. Now reported in 26 states, didn't take long, did it, for it to spread like wildfire, and several other countries. The purpose of this HAN advisory is to update public health departments and healthcare facilities about this epidemic and to provide guidance to healthcare providers. At this time, the FDA and NIH are evaluating potential treatment options. Evidence indicates that antiviral pharmaceuticals may provide benefit based on previous trials and other coronavirus patients. The antiviral Kalakavir is the leading candidate. Now this, what they're talking about here, if you want to know what they're talking about, just change that name that's hard to pronounce, Kalakavir, with the name is escaping me right now. Hydrochloroquine. There we go. Hydrochloroquine. And we all have not. We've heard about this in the news, and how it was back there for a while, and people were saying that it's an effective drug and treatment for the Cobra Vampire 19er, but then they flip-flopped and they were uncertain of whether it was or not. This is what they're talking about here. Is the leading candidate. However, neither the efficacy nor safety profile has been determined for SPARS cases. Further guidance regarding personal protective equipment, PPE, there's that PPE, son of a gun, and clinical care protocols are delineated below. I'm sure I didn't get that word right. I'm not a philosopher, though, or a professor. I'm just a lover of my brethren and the Most High. Early in the SPARS pandemic, public health and medical professionals were hopeful that the outbreak could be contained to case identification and isolation. It quickly became clear, however, that this strategy was not as effective as initially hoped. First, challenges in identifying mild cases limited the impact of isolation programs. Because the initial symptoms of SPARS closely resembled influenza, many who had, and that's such a coincidence too, isn't it? That the symptoms closely resemble influenza symptoms, not just in this supposedly fictional paper, but in the actual fictional pandemic that we're being lied to about. It closely resembles influenza symptoms that just oddly disappeared the last year or so. Have you read the headlines that says, "Where has the flu gone?" ? And I've read the stats, the numbers that says that influenza deaths and cases were down 98% in 2020. Isn't that just a coinky-dink? Yeah, it sure is, isn't it? Many who contracted SPARS did not immediately seek care, assuming they merely had the flu. Fortunately, some who thought they had the flu chose to isolate themselves at home, quarantine, thereby preventing the spread of SPARS outside their households. Over the Thanksgiving holiday, just love that Thanksgiving holiday, don't y'all, Mishpachah? that pagan celebration of death and murder to our brethren. Yeah, it's a fantastic day that you or I should want nothing to do with, and I do not. And I pray that y'all throw that down too if you're still playing around with those days and those festivals. And Black Friday. However, fewer infected persons remained home, thereby enabling the spread of spars. You no good son of a guns. How dare you go outside your home and 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 go back to work and go back to school and go back to living your lives because you had uh, a cough or a runny nose, or you sneezed. You know, when you sneezed that one time because you got some pepper up in your nose when you were making dinner, you should have quarantined for 2 weeks right there. And because you haven't, you are the culprit, and you are the reason and the problem that we're facing today. Just remember that the next time you cough or you sneeze, regardless of the reason. Midwest. Let me see. Where was I? Enabling the spread of spars beyond the Midwest. And I just saw yesterday and today that they're saying the Midwest is now the epicenter. That Michigan, the cases have jumped so high in the Cobra Vampire 1-9er in Michigan that they're considering another lockdown. Yeah, and these people that are continuing to go to work every day and to take care of their families and run their businesses, they are predators and horrible individuals that only care about themselves, and they should just stay home. You know, Michigan's up next for a lockdown. Now, don't quote me on that because it might not happen, because it might not be in the plans. Together, these factors led to significant spikes in the number of reported cases. By mid-December, SPARS cases were reported in 26 states. And the Ministries of Health in Mexico, that sounds a little bit like 1984, that title there. Canada, Brazil, Japan, and several European countries had notified the WHO of dozens of imported cases, just flying over here. These cases just showed up at the airport all of a sudden. There were widespread concern in public health circles that travel over the Christmas and New Year's holidays would spark a global pandemic. That's why you shouldn't be celebrating Christmas and New Year's, the day of Janus, that are all pagan, steeped in paganry, and are founded on the firm foundation of Satan, which it is not a firm foundation. It's one of sand. And if you're still celebrating these things and you don't see the problem with it, then your house is built on a foundation of sand, just like Yahusha said. When the flood comes, it'll be washed away downstream. But those who build their house upon the rock, which is truth, which is Torah, those people, they will stand in the day of calamity. They won't be washed upstream. So, back to these nasty holidays would spark a global pandemic. WHO, which had declared the SPARS epidemic to be a, whatever that is, PHEIC, on November 25th, was actively engaged in preventing further spread of the disease internationally. However, the WHO's efforts promoted interventions originally designed for influenza and other similar respiratory pathogens, such as hygiene, social distancing, 6 feet, y'all, and isolation of suspected cases, all of which were less effective against SPARS. See, they know that none of these things are effective against a mysterious, invisible enemy that does not exist. It's hard to be effective against something that does not exist, right? The CDC initially followed a similar strategy. The spike in cases in November and December, however, led to increasing public concerns about the disease. By late December, public concerns about SPARS in the United States was extremely high, and there was intense public pressure to identify treatments for the disease. At that time, no treatment or vaccine for SPARS was approved for use in humans. The antiviral hydrochloroquine, wink wink, which was initially developed as a therapeutic for severe St. Paul's syndrome and Middle East respiratory syndrome. Oh, they got a Middle East one too, eh? Was one of several antiviral drugs authorized in the United States by the FDA to treat a handful of severe SPARS cases under its expanded access protocol. Hydrochloroquine had shown some evidence of efficacy against other coronaviruses, and a small inventory of the drug was already a part of the strategic national stockpile. You got stockpiles of this stuff. Bo Jiden has said that they have made it so that everyone in this country has a facility within 5 miles of them. Think about that. Let that sink in. That where you are right now, if you're watching this, within 5 miles of you, there is a stockpile of these these Maxine waters that has its aim at your arm. And these people, these Bo Jidens and Mr. T, Donald Trump, they're encouraging you to go get this. And if you're still stuck in the right-left paradigm, the paradigm that divides, and you're still thinking that Mr. T is on your side, yeah, he's encouraging you to take this. And he was the man for the job to encourage the people on the right. The studies show, and the census shows that nearly 60%, I think it was, of white Republican men say no to this, that they say they will refuse this jab. Those people, according to them, are the biggest obstacle, that they are the biggest hump to get over in inoculating 70 to 85% of the world. So if they would have had a man on the left like Hussein Obama to roll this out, if there would have been someone on the left in office when this spamdemic came about, they would have had a really tough time convincing white Republican men to take this jab. So what'd they do? They got someone that these white Republican men just idolized and hung from his every word to convince you to take this. That was one of his key contributions to this whole thing was being the mouthpiece, the spokesmodel for the CV-19, the Cobra Vampire 19er maccination slaughter. He was the man for the job to get you to take it. Wake up, my Mishpachah. If you already aren't right here with me, out here on the battlefront, doing your part. Not to stop it, because, I'm not naive enough to think that this is going to stop by anything that I can do. But what I can do is do my part and be responsible. So when that day of accountability comes, no one, especially the Most High, won't say that I did not try. I'm trying. At that time, no treatment or vaccine for SPARS was approved for use in humans. Okay, I'm sorry, I done read that part. Got off on a little bit of a tangent there. In anticipation of FDA approval, despite some concerns about potential adverse side effects, the lack of concrete information regarding potential treatments in the face of the increasingly rapid spread of SPARS prompted demands from the media, the public, and the political leaders for the FDA to be more forthcoming with information on potential treatment options. You remember, get your shots. You got to get your shots. You remember that in the Rose Garden on the tarmac? Mr. T-Man himself encouraging us. The guy that didn't take his publicly on camera, that he took his behind closed doors. Yeah, that guy. He was the man for the job to convince you to roll up your sleeve. So I'm gonna finish this right here, this last little communication dilemma, and then I'll wrap it up for now, and we'll come back tomorrow with more, and I'll do this every night until we get through this, and we outline or we reveal what these people are trying to do to us. And I just ask that you pray that this gets out there and that enough people see this, or that everyone sees this, and especially anyone who is still in doubt of what's going on, that is still in danger of being slain by these things. Responding to public and political pressure to share information about potential MCMs in the development pipeline, even though information may be incomplete or proprietary. Food for thought. What risks do public health agencies face in the public media and or political leaders feel that information about potential treatment options is being withheld? What kinds of outreach could public health agencies perform in advance of a crisis to mitigate any perceived lack of transparency? If such a perception emerges in the crisis, then how might it be diffused? So I'm going to end right there for tonight. I know y'all don't like to watch these videos that get up around 20 minutes, and I'm not sure what time we're at right now, but I'm sure it's up around there, if not past. But just remember, I want to close with this last little nugget here. It says, how might that be diffused? So this, like I said in the beginning, this is these are tips. This paper provides the groundwork. It provides the direction that these people that are either one, evil, with purely evil intentions to slay, or two, that these people are people that love the world and the cares and the lust thereof so much that they are willing to do anything, even if that is going along with a slaughter, with an absolute massacre, to keep their world. It is an outline, it is a direction, a map for these people. And however you want to look at it, if they're going along to get along and they're willing to do this to us, they're just as evil as the people that made this with pure evil intentions to do this to us. It is a map for them to use when they are considering how to diffuse us, how to skirt us, circumvent us who are trying to raise awareness about what's going on, and those who refuse to roll up their sleeves. There's so much more. There's 88 pages in this document besides the cover, which is no coincidence because Mr. T, Donald Trump himself, his number is 88. And he can be connected to that number in so many ways, and in ways that are by no means a coincidence. So we'll be back here tomorrow. We'll start at page 10, and we're going to go through this, and you're going to want to see these things. You're going to want to read this, and whether it's from me or you go and get the PDF yourself, you're going to want to look into this. So we can use these things, these tools they have made against us, these weapons they have formed against us. We can use these weapons against them. And we can take these weapons that are aimed at us, destroy them, because what's it say? No weapon formed against us shall prosper. No, we can catch this arrow, put it in our own bow, and launch it right back at them. That's the plan, Stan, and I'll be right back here starting at page 10 tomorrow evening. Not for sure the set time, but we'll be here. For now, I love y'all, Mish. Shalom, shalom. Peace out. These out.